Welcome back to the Blacktail Coach Podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Dave.
All right, week 3 of Trail Camera Adventures with John Nicholson. That's his YouTube channel, but it's a great title for these episodes.
Week 3 out of week 26.
And yes, John, I believe you could probably do a podcast of you do a YouTube channel of just trail cameras, but there's just so much content. And
there is.
I thought, you know what? We might be able to get a couple episodes, but this is it's 3 episodes. And this is great because as we were talking off air, our goal is that for our listeners, we want you to go away from listening a smarter, better hunter. That's always been our focus.
Yep.
And we think that this is making people smarter, better hunters. Yeah. Because even Dave and I were just, wow, okay, I never realized that. And Dave, who has been messing around with trail cameras as long as you have, I'm still the newbie, so of course I'm learning stuff. But yeah, for Dave to be learning stuff.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that I just conceded to the fact, let's just user error, I'm just doing something wrong, and I can live with it. I can get this and stuff. And the thing is, it's funny because we did a one-day in-person seminar, 7 hours, last Saturday. I've got 7 hours to explain to these guys my system and how I do it and everything, and we get to trail cameras. And I think they're one of the most underutilized tools out there, in the sense that buck is telling you exactly how to hunt him every time he steps in front of that trail camera. And you've said it off air, from the way they come in to the way they leave, what time, what's the barometric pressure, wind direction, with the temperature, moon phase, and all of that is covered in these trail cameras. And guys are getting them, and they're buying the trail camera initially for the entertainment factor, and they're extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
But as far as a hunting tool, they're priceless, because again, that buck is telling you how to hunt him, or that bear, or that elk. But guys aren't utilizing that. They're not looking at the trail camera as a tool. They're looking at it as entertainment, and it has a little bit of value to it as far as helping me out there. I know what animal's coming in. I know how big he is, or the caliber of animal. They're just not utilizing everything that's given to them. Aaron calls it data collection, and then reading the data. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And they've come a long way.
And that's with talking about data collection, and that's how we want to. Yes, it's really cool when you get pictures of all these animals. And I've gotten so many different animals on picture, but being able to read that as data and to adjust what you're doing in your hunts is really interesting. Just with, okay, he's actually moving from left to right, not right to left. So that's his favorite trail, and he's coming in at this time, and it's not quite daylight, so I might need to leapfrog and go down the trail another 40, 50 yards, and all this that we've talked about and done. But yeah, it's using the trail cams as a tool. And I know we actually even touched on that, and we will do it, we call it leapfrogging, and we'll just leapfrog with our cameras down the trail until we get them to the point where we can get that buck on daylighting at a certain point. So let's start off for beginners or guys who are just getting into cameras. Are there any companies, brands of cameras that they should avoid? Or
we were talking about this earlier. For the most part, if you would ask me that 10, 15 years ago, I would have had a list longer than the ones that you should get. But today, the only cameras that are constantly letting me down are these little tiny compacts that only use 3 to 4 batteries, and they're called micro minis or something like that. And I've tried buying those 3 times online, and I've had absolutely no success with them. So that's just my personal experience. In time, guess what? Those are going to be better too. But I would say overall, for the rest of them, all the brand names that are out there make good cameras.
Okay.
But once again, we brought this up on the last episode. What's your application? Okay, and I'm going to talk about my application for just a second. My application is for eventually for YouTube, the greatest video I ever saw, this animal, whatever it is. And so I have to have something that's extremely high resolution, looks really good, and I need to be able to, I crazy editing. When you watch, if you haven't been on my channel before, the editing that I have, I get comments all the time. You're not really using trail cameras because you're going all over the place and you're zooming in and you're zooming out and you're doing all. No, I am. That's a trail camera, and my editing program does all that.
You can zoom in on stuff.
And almost nobody else on YouTube does that yet. 5 years from now, maybe everybody will be doing it because I've had great success with it. But for me and my application, the highest resolution and clarity of whatever I'm getting is best because I just got that buck in the far right-hand corner way back. So now I have to zoom in and create something that looks really good. And so the very best ones that I use for that, my application, are the Brownings, without a doubt. And what happens with them that I don't see happening on my other ones, even though I've got a lot of, there's got to be 20 different brands that I use. But what I see happening with them is when I zoom in, I have the very clearest and I have the best color when I'm editing.
Okay, so the
Brownings for me, they've done something in their sourcing that just makes things super crisp, and the color is unreal. With others, you'll see things wash out. Okay. But who cares if you're not doing it for editing? Who cares?
Yeah.
So that's what I was going to ask. As far as John, you said the mini. The
ones that were
the micro minis.
The micro minis. Yeah. So you said that you didn't have success with them. What is your definition of success versus
complete failure? Meaning my experience is they've gone into a night mode, so even during the day everything's red because they use that filter. Several of them did that, and then just absolute failure. They don't pick up things, even like in my chicken coops when I'm testing them and the chickens are walking back before they go back. Wait a minute. So those little micro minis, for lack of better terms, I don't know what they call them, but they only do 3 or 4 batteries, unlike the masses that will do 8 batteries. They're very small, and they're also inexpensive.
So is this like immediate failure, or are you getting any time out of them?
I only had one that was even acceptable, and I think I bought 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, at different times. But I haven't gone back to using any of those little ones it's been 3 years now. They might not even be available. Probably a huge return rate on that. Okay. But I just move on and get something that does work.
So I threw it into Amazon.
Yeah, well, that's where I got them.
Mini trail camera 4-pack for $140.
4 of them for $140. Okay, so that tells you something.
$22 to $30 usually is what they're costing.
Yeah.
WO Sports, WO Sports it looks like a common brand name. Yeah. So those look like I'm seeing those on there. So just avoid those.
Yeah. I'd be interested in seeing what the reviews are.
Which one?
Because you said it's been 3 years, right?
It's been 3 years, yeah.
So which ones would you say, is there any particular brand, and it might be all of them now, that are more user-friendly, or are there ones that are pretty complex that probably you should not buy those as your first camera?
The default function is your friend.
Okay.
It really is.
That's good to know.
It really is. So almost all the other compact, normal size, they take 8 AA batteries, are all going to be pretty darn good. They really are. And they will, when you get into it and go to program your first one, if you have a friend that has a trail camera, just buddy up with them. Get them an iced tea and say, hey, help me do this first one. And then you'll find out it's really pretty easy. The challenging parts in setting up your camera are first of all, if you're as old as me, you got to get the glasses that you can see the little tiny rider. That's the truth.
That's everybody at the table here right now.
All in that boat.
Does that say on or off? Does that say mode? So you're going to know what mode is, and you got to switch up and down. And then you get somebody like me that I love these things. I love scrolling through them. I'll show you how to scroll. You got to get into submenus to do the really cool stuff that you want to do. And
I don't put
I'm
my
happy to
SD
do it.
cards without bringing my readers with me.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Well, let's talk about that just a second, because you lose things. Oh, all right, and you can't see them. So I stopped buying the micro SD cards.
I can never get those to work. The micro SD in any of my cameras.
Okay,
They
so
won't read them.
They won't read them?
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about. That shouldn't be a problem.
I've got a couple micro SDs, but it won't, even in the adapter, it'll act like there's not a card in there.
Oh.
So does that card need to be formatted?
Yeah.
But it won't even format. It won't. And it might be
That's
because
probably a
in
camera
a $25 camera,
Yeah, that's
it's
probably
like, no.
Oh, and all those little mini ones that
Yeah.
I was telling about to stay away from, those are all the little
Micro.
ones.
Oh, okay.
So here's the real reason why guys our age, thank you for including me on your age, because you guys look a lot younger than I feel today. You drop that micro SD card, and every time I pull one out, and I probably got 30 of them that are still I'm scared to death to drop that thing. I'm taking my gloves off. I got tweezers. I carried around for a year a metal detector, so when I did drop it and I could find it in the leaf litter, I swear to God, I lose them. And I have lost them out there. They drop them out and I can't find them. I found one a year later, one time under a camera, and there was all sorts of bears and stuff on it. I'm like, man, this is still good.
That's funny. But I remember I was hunting Clooney late season, a buck I'd call Clooney. And man, he was coming in, and I was just excited. And it was a camera. It wasn't a cellular. It was the old style.
Yeah.
So I pulled the SD card and I put a new one in there, and I climbed up into my stand, and I had the
reader,
iPhone reader, so I could plug it in there. And I was getting all excited, and it was cold, and it snowed the day before and everything, and it melted, but it was just nice and really damp and cold out there. And man, I started shaking, and no sooner got up in my tree stand, got everything set, sat down, pulled the card out of my pocket, and instantly dropped it from the tree stand down into the ferns.
Yeah.
And I thought I could go down there and dig for 45 minutes to an hour trying to find it, or I could just hunt and see if, by the grace of God, I can find it when I leave here tonight. And praise God, I found it. It didn't take me 5 minutes, but that's because I waited till it was dark and I was sitting there with a flashlight. Had I climbed down at that time, it had taken me maybe 2 hours to find, because it's just how it goes. During hunting light, I can't find it, but as soon as it gets dark, it's just, oh, there it is.
I have tweezers in my pack just for pulling those things in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I told you about the metal detector.
I've just found that, because mine are where it kind of spring loads, so you push on it.
Oh, yeah.
I cup my hand underneath so that if it falls into my hand, hopefully, and now it's going to happen, but I've yet to actually drop it where I couldn't find it pretty quick. But I'm dreading that day.
You're due.
Yeah,
You're due.
I pulled one off of Wyatt's lip. Okay, I'm pulling. You just reminded me of a story. I'm cupping it so when it comes out, I don't lose it. I'm cupping it and it comes out and it goes in my hand. And I guess Wyatt, my big 140-pound bloodhound, thought I had a treat in there, and he just jams his nose in there, and he comes out, and the big old slobber face, he comes out, I got it.
He's just prying his mouth open.
Oh, yeah. So that's...
Following him around with a sandwich baggie.
I'm not buying those micros anymore. It's just me.
Yeah. So let's talk, because you keep bringing up Blacktail with your camera. So let's talk about Blacktail, because I think that's what everybody wants to know about. So you said something about the white light and all of that. Go ahead. Let's hear.
So when you go back 15 years ago and we were developing some of these cameras, and they were toaster size, if you will, a lot of them were firing nighttime with white light. Okay. There is nothing that scares, in my opinion, that scares off a mature blacktail buck than a white light flashing. Nothing. You might get them once. There'll be a big surprise look on his face and you will never get him again. Okay, that's the white light. Now we got away from that. Almost nobody has that anymore, but more than half of my cameras, when they activate, they might have some kind of sound that we can't hear, which is a lot of sounds from me, and some kind of light, an LED or something. Yeah. And you'll see the blacktails notice that better than any other animal. Cats are really good. Cougars are good at seeing the light too, but they'll notice that more than anything. Now, if you get, like with Browning, they call them their blackouts, and it's got a filtered lens that goes over, like your car. You put lens, what do you call that? Tinting. Yeah. It tints that. That's really good. They don't notice it. So if you're doing trail cameras specifically for black-tailed deer, get the blackout type. You don't want any lights whatsoever. And because there's a saving grace to this. If you get one picture of that buck, you can be assured he might not ever step in front of that camera, but he hasn't left. He has not left. He's going to be there. He's going to be within 20 to 40 acres. That's the thing about blacktail bucks that are so great. When you finally find that guy, you're not going to blow him out. He's going to be there somewhere. So every time you go in with your camera, to pull your camera, every time you go, you need to think to yourself, that buck is either looking at me or just over that ridge or within 20 acres, no more than 40 acres. He lives there. Yeah. He is not going anywhere. So that's the exciting thing about trail cameras and blacktail. Now you have to continue to get pictures of him closer to where his daytime bedding hiding spot is. Yeah. So that's where the real hunting comes in for blacktail bucks with trail cameras. You just got to get that one picture and you know he's there. And then if that's the last one you get, okay, he figured you out, but he still lives there. He lives there.
Have you noticed, and this is something I figured out my first year of hunting, well, I figured out the second year, that Dave taught me about that blacktail will go to certain areas of their range at a certain time of year, and they will never step foot in that spot for the rest of the year. And I have a particular buck, and I mentioned him a bunch of times. I named him 2 times because he came in 2 times, 10 days apart, the first year I was hunting. And then the following year, he came in multiple times, but the same time period, same 10, 12 days in October and late October. And Dave was talking, it was pre-rut and searching phase. So he's looking for does, and that's the particular area he's looking for them at that time of year. And I've had cameras in that spot for almost year round, from I would say late February through early January, maybe only 6-8 weeks of not having cameras there. And literally the only time I will see this buck is 10 days. Now, have you noticed that with yours, that they will, and not only bucks, but elk or anything like that, they have a pattern to when they come by?
Oh yeah, everything has a pattern. And the biggest patterns are like the toms, the lions. Okay. As you go down, the smaller from there would be the bobcats. Okay. And we don't have whitetail in this area. Whitetail, pretty good sized pattern. I lived in Indiana for a while. Okay. And then elk is like every 3 days, every 5 days. That's arguable, but that's a pretty big range. And it's really good that they do that. It gives everything that they're browsing on a chance to grow back. And blacktail, let's segment the blacktail from the does to the bucks, okay? And does with 1-year-olds, bucks too. They're in a tight area most of the year, including during the rut. And this is my opinion, it's arguable, including during the rut. And I'm going to say 20 acres. That's pretty tight, okay? I'm going to say the bucks will always be, almost always, all year long, including to the rut, within 40 acres. That's my rule of thumb. If every time I go in, I tell myself, John, and it's a buck that I'm targeting, you be very careful because that buck is looking at you. that buck is within 40 acres, no matter what, I'm a whole lot better in the woods with my trail cameras and everything. And now I take every single video. See, this is why it's so important, especially for blacktail. You need to get out of picture mode and get on video, because you're going to see things that you didn't know. Yeah, how they're leaving, how they're coming in, how another one came in. Yeah. Maybe there's some smaller ones. Those smaller bucks that are hanging with the dominant buck that you want, they're bedding in the same area. So you get a better picture of where they're daytime bedding. Now, what happens during the rut? There's certain time periods, and Dave gets into this better than anybody I've ever seen. I've listened to him. I could pull y'all up. That's a little different, because there's a few days that they're going crazy, but they're still within that racetrack. They are within that racetrack. You can be anywhere in that racetrack, but where you want to be is where they are most of the time. And so you have all year long to figure out where that is. And then when you finally figure it out and you're getting the most pictures, and it's going to be at night, okay? Because they are mostly nocturnal. And then all of a sudden the route during the daytime or during the rut and pre-rut is more daytime stuff. And so you want to hunt that, in my opinion, you want to hunt that perimeter. You can't get in there without disturbing him. He's the king of the woods. So you want to hunt that perimeter and be ready for him.
It's interesting. So you've actually just confirmed Dave's teaching. That is what we teach in the class.
Oh, okay.
And they've actually, because Dave brings up the study that Washington did, and for the average blacktail is 51 acres.
Just over 51 acres.
Just
over
really? 51 acres.
And then they live, and then your dominant bucks, your mature bucks, let's just say your mature bucks, spend over 90% of their lives in 30% of that 51 acres.
Yeah. So if you think about everything that's out there that we can hunt or we can take videos of or that we're interested in, blacktail bucks, mature bucks, are the tightest to staying in their living room than anything out there.
Right, absolutely.
And once you understand that and believe it, now that we're hunting them for pictures or videos or for food, we can do a better job of getting in there and getting more intel on them.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to understand they are tight, they are there. So you don't go in there and making a racket with your dogs and your neighbors and everything else. You save that for other areas.
Right. But you're right, though. You're hunting the edges of it. And the problem that a lot of guys have is that they have that drive in them, and I commend them for the drive, but they want to walk through that core area. And there's nothing that pushes a big mature buck out of an area and cause him to relocate and establish another range somewhere else than to go through his bedroom. So it's the understanding that, and the way I tell the guys at the seminars and in the classes and everything, is that you can have a hunt that's one and done. So if you want to go through that bedroom, that's your one hunt on that buck, because you're going to push him out and he's going to relocate. So if you don't get it done, if it doesn't happen on that one hunt, that's the only hunt you have on that buck. But if you hunt the edges of that bedroom and you do it in such a way that he doesn't know he's being hunted, you're going to have multiple hunts on that buck. You're going to be able, if you don't get him this season, he'll be there next season and the season after and the season. And a lot of these big bucks, they die of old age because people haven't figured out how to hunt that thick stuff other than trying to drive through it. You know what I mean? So it's interesting in hearing how you visually have picked this up and this concept that you've come up with as far as deducing their range and everything. That just tells me you've spent a lot of time out in the woods.
I'm all about animal behavior.
Absolutely.
I'm going to add one other pearl of wisdom, if you will, for guys that are hunting these things. I have experience that in the rut or just the nighttime activity, these bucks are much like a racetrack. They'll do their track and they'll always start and go in the same direction. So keep that in mind.
That is 100% true.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
They're not just wandering around like
there is a purpose and they're on a mission.
Yes.
And they do that same routine and that's why, so with 2 times, and I was telling him he's in the seeking phase of the rut, he's already established that none of the does in his immediate core area are going into any kind of standing estrus. They may be in an estrus cycle, but they're not close to that standing estrus, that 3-day window. So he moves out, but he moves out, and like you said, he runs the same track or the same routine every night until he finds a doe in standing estrus. And when he finds one, he usually finds multiple. And so that's why he spends more time.
And to that point, so the set I'm going to hunt, and I've mentioned this deer a million times, Anakin. So next year, he's my target buck. Okay, so there's an upper core area, bedding area, right next to a swamp, and it's up above the swamp, and then Skidder Road, and then it drops off into a drainage, and which is another core area because it's got that, it's real thick, lots of undergrowth, jack fir, John fir, all of that. And I've had cameras on because they have to walk around that swamp, and they're stopped by the Skidder Road on one end, and they're stopped by that drainage on the other. So they're doing a circle. And sure enough, I've got them coming out in the morning, usually closer to where I'm parking. And when they go back in the afternoon, a lot of times they're walking back right at the tail end of daylight. They're walking back up to the bedding area on the other side, closer to the drainage area. But the wind is determining that track that they're running. And it's typically in the morning, it's to their advantage to walk on one side, and then in the afternoon, the wind is blowing into the other side. So it kind of shifts directions, the thermals and everything. But yeah, I figured that out, and yeah, they are running that track.
There's a theme that I keep coming back to. More cameras. You need more cameras. And you wonder, my wife wonders, why do you need so many cameras?
Yeah.
Why do you need so many shoes?
And so right now there's one camera because I didn't get my 3.5-year-old pick of Anakin, and it's up there, and I ran drags and did my scents it was after Christmas. And it's literally, there are 2 trails that he could go on to get out of that upper bedding area. So I'm sure I've got a picture. I have yet to, because that camera's been, I would say, soaking for now 2.5 months. So I need to run back up there. That was the plan this weekend, run back up there. But let's wrap up with some stories. Craziest things that you've seen that you've caught on cameras. Mine I caught, and these were the bears the only 2 bears I've ever named. I caught them making baby bears on my camera, and I actually named them after my parents. It was Bob and Mary.
That's awesome.
But that was the funniest thing. But I've caught like cougar, bobcat, coyote, rabbit, all kinds of birds, deer, elk. Yeah, everything I've had on camera and stuff. But we'll go to Dave because I think yours might take a little longer.
Oh, I got
your craziest thing that you've caught on camera.
I would say, as far as crazy, I'm going to call it crazy good. I had a 5x7 and a 5x5 fighting on camera, and it was on my wife's set. And they were there for 3. They came in 3 times that season.
These are elk?
Deer. Yeah, bucks. Yeah, and the 5x7 was just a gorgeous buck, but they were just going at it. And showed up the next night, and one of them had lost one tine, and the other one had broke off the tips of 2 others. There was obviously a hot doe in the area, and one of them had it locked down, and the other one wanted it and everything, but yeah, just some great, and it was like the whole thing just took place right in front of the camera.
Perfectly.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it there any better. For me, that would be the best. And then I always like getting pictures of bobcats.
Yeah.
I don't like getting pictures of cougars because that usually means that the deer activity is going to plummet. Cougars and bears typically because they're either going to chew on the camera, or if I've got minerals or anything like that, they're going to just start going in there and messing everything up. But yeah, I always enjoy getting pictures of bobcats. You had mentioned it earlier, but you're right. They're never just relaxed walking. They always seem to be sneaking through the ferns.
Mine, I thought was the bobcat I thought was a coyote because it was one of those dusk picks. So it was the black and white, and he was sitting facing away, and it just looked like a coyote. But then I started looking, and his head was down, But then when I looked closer, I noticed the tail was the little bobtail, and I'm like, oh, that was really cool. The cougar, the one time, which was great, it was middle of the day, but I had a doe and 2 fawns walk through. An hour or two later, the cougar walked through, and the next time I saw the doe walking back, which might have been a couple days later, it was a doe and 1 fawn. So he was tracking them, got a meal out of it, but fortunately he only got one. Okay, you got to tell us what's
You
some of
could
the cool
pick an
stuff.
animal, and I got one for everyone, but I really do. Obsessed. But since you just ended up on cougars fascinate me. And I'll tell you something else that fascinates me is the baby deer every year when the little spotted deer. And it seems like in my neck of the woods and where I run all my lines, every doe is getting 2 or 3 little ones. Not
Oh, that's
one,
great.
2 or 3.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. But it's also, I have come to realize in my older age that we're feeding the forest with those deers because by 2 or 3 months down the road, there's only 1 or none. And that's a little sad, but that's part of it that we humans don't realize that they got to eat. The cougars got to eat, the bobcats got to eat, and then there's some mortality that happens. So this was an amazing thing that I only discovered last year. There was this mama with her 2 little spotted fawns that I'd been watching in this area. And then the next time I went, I saw her coming across the video left to right, and then hop off in distress. And then a few minutes later, she comes back the other way and she's stomping, oh, oh, oh. And then she comes on the other side of the trail and does the same thing. And I'm like, oh, where's the little ones? It looks like something's after her. And then she disappears for a while, and all of a sudden she comes into the view and then goes off at the strangest angle through the woods, through the sow owl. At no deer would ever go that way unless they're in distress. And I hear her bawling and making noise. And at this time, I'm like, she has either got her little ones hiding or she's trying to distract. And I figured it was a cat at that point, but I hadn't seen one. 6 minutes later, this female cat comes in and looks like one of my bloodhounds sniffing the ground, gets to the point where that doe went up through the sow out at the strangest angle and scent trailed that deer up through the sow. Now, I have, I've seen cat tracks in my tracks in the mud and in the snow at times after I'm coming back, but we think of these lions as very visual ambush predators, and they are. I don't think of them like my bloodhounds and they could track stuff down. But that's exactly what this thing was doing. It was tracking down this doe by scent, even though that was alarming to me that they can do that. So that's a prize. I've got so many of them. We could do a whole nother.
Hold on. We've got time for another one.
Okay. Yeah. Name an animal.
Since it's our favorite, how about a bobcat?
A bobcat. Yeah. Okay. I had this little tiny bobcat this is my favorite bobcat one. It's no bigger than the house cat around. Yeah. And when they're little like that, they have all the color and the spots, and they're just beautiful. And this little bobcat walks right up to the camera and sits down on video and looks at the camera and is just looking at me. And if you listen really, really good, you can hear, it's like it's talking to me on TV. And I'm like, that is so, and it's behavior like that. I dig that.
We had bobcat kitten in the backyard.
Last summer, yeah.
And it was funny. He was about the size of a house cat, but you could tell watching him run through the yard, he was a kitten. But he was the size of a house cat, but just the way kittens run.
Yeah.
And everything like that. But I had a cub walk through. It was a sow and a juvenile. I don't know what the proper term is, but it was 2 sows.
Yeah.
But a cub, and some of the best pictures, and he hung out on my set. This was back we could still bait, and that's when I'd put down a Big and J block. And bears love
Oh,
those.
yeah. It's
Those are
7%
candy for them.
Molasses, yeah.
And
Yep.
he hung out kind of gnawing down that block and stuff. But for the longest time, I must have had 40, 50 pictures of just him standing on his hind legs looking
Doing
around.
stuff. Bears are so cool.
Yeah, that was a really cool one because he was actually, the more I talk, it's like the more funny stories because I had a bear look like he had the zoomies.
Yeah.
Like a dog.
I want to tell a bear story. You got me going on bears.
So chasing off
Yeah.
raccoons on the set because back when we could make, chasing them off. So tell us your bear story.
Many years ago, I got this mama that comes out with her 2 little puffballs and then going across the screen. Oh, that's cute. We got a mama bear. And this was when we didn't have nearly as many bears in this area. There was a lot of bears. And then the next year I got him again with mama. And I was like, that's so cool. That's 2 years in a row. I feel like I should name them. And you could tell it was the same ones. And now they're bigger. 3rd year, I get the 2 together without the mom. And I'm like, oh my God. And one's a little bit bigger and you can tell on the head. And if you can judge bears, one's a male and one's a female. So this is year number 3. Number 3, I got them together, just roaming around, looking around over their shoulder, scared, but they're hanging out, watching out for each other. And I've got a Disney theme going on in my mind with these guys. The next year, they're separate. But I know these bears individually, and I start seeing them and watching the videos. This is why it's important for guys to get out of picture mode and get into video mode and start watching animal behavior. And so I'm watching the male. So he's 4 and he's pretty good size, okay? And he's in front of this water hole again. And he's sitting there and he's just forlorn sitting there and he's looking out over the water. And all of a sudden he perks up. And he looks over his shoulder and he gets all excited like this. And the female, his sister, comes in. They had been like separated. And it's all of a sudden, I have a camera placed in the perfect position to see a sibling reunion and they start wrestling. And I have a half an hour of these 2 wrestling in front of the camera and dust going up. And it's like,
would be cool.
Oh, there's a whole long content video on that, on them wrestling and doing stuff. And they're doing arm drags. Okay, I'm a wrestler, lifetime. They're doing arm drags. They're throwing each other over their shoulders. And the male is way more powerful than the female. And it's playtime. It's like my big dogs wrestling.
That's
a
awesome.
half hour of it.
That would be
It's
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
So if you like watching big bears play, and anybody walking up and seeing that for the first time would say those are 2 mature bears, but they're only 4 years old and they're brother and sister and they were wrestling. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay,
That
I'm
is
going to
awesome.
have to go with video mode now.
Yeah, I know. It just
Got me
makes you want to.
convinced.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I got plenty of battery, plenty of SD card. I think we're going to wrap up the episode there. Again, thank you, John, for joining us. Trail Camera Adventures on YouTube. Go check it out, subscribe. Lots of great content on there, and you'll learn even more about cameras. If you have any questions or some ideas, I think we just kind of scratched the surface. Where you want John to come back, shoot us an email, blacktailcoach@gmail.com. I'm trying to remember the email address here. Send us an email or leave a comment below. Just give us some more ideas, some more questions we could ask, because I'm sure we missed something that would be helpful. But if you could go on, subscribe, follow, heart, share, do all those things that your platform asks. Check out our affiliate links below, and we will talk to you next week.